Warning: this video will include scary sounds and imagery, and some depressing but meaningful topics. So if you're watching this at night or not in a good mental place for it, then come back to it later, or go to one of my more cheerful videos, like the Rocket League or Terraformers video. But if you have the stomach for the video, I hope you enjoy it, and subscribe if you did. I was never really into the survival horror genre. I always thought that they were interesting, but didn't think they would be fun to play. But there was something about Signalis that I thought I just had to experience it for myself. I first saw a video about the game, and since then the game has lived rent-free in my head. And after finally playing it myself, I can say that it's an amazing game, and that the game and everything about it is gonna stick with me for a long time. And I'm pretty happy that this was my first real survival horror game experience. Premise: it starts with a very cold open, with your main character waking up from some kind of sleeper pod, and you have to explore your surroundings and figure out what's going on. You discover that you're on a ship that crashed on some planet, and the ship is no longer operational. So you have no choice but to explore the planet and see if you can find anything useful or other people. Or at least that's what you'd assume. You can't leave the ship because you need a key, which you find in the ship's cryogenic pod. Now you're free to explore the planet, and on the planet the character finds a huge open gate and a huge hole behind it. The character promptly goes down, and then you must crawl through an even smaller hole. At the end of the hole is a small room, with a radio, a computer, and a book, called The King in Yellow. When you pick the book up, the computer starts broadcasting a message. A signal. Now the game really begins, with a cold transition to a bathroom. You are Elster, an android, and you have to figure out what the signal is, where you are, and what the promise is, and who the girls in the cutscenes were. Gameplay. I'll start with the puzzles because they are the reason you go around the map, getting keys or some documents that tell you how to solve them. Traveling through dark, creepy hallways with nothing but the faint sound of wind or the humming of machinery keeping you company. Looking for some clue on where to go next, or looking for a way to open a door. What I really appreciated and made me comfortable was having a map. Not having the map would make the game more uncomfortable and more horrific, but I think it would also make the game more annoying, because I would just end up drawing the map myself. Often key items will be locked behind their own puzzle, like they could be locked inside an incinerator, and you need to adjust the gas right for the door to open. Or maybe they're locked in a box with a microphone and you need to look around the map to find out what audio the microphone needs. Or, more specifically, what radio frequency it needs. Elster is an android, a replica of a person, one of many, of her own type of unit and many other types of replicas. And she has a built-in radio, and that's a really cool mechanic that you use in puzzles, to get key codes to safes, and sometimes to kill enemies by creating a radio feedback loop. Yeah, it's damn cool. Elster is also equipped with a file browser, and I really appreciate that, because one of my gaming pet peeves is when I have to take notes in real life. And no matter what's happening on screen, you can look at your files and see if you have a file with a key code, for example. Now, gathering up the key items and items you need to survive, such as ammo and healing items, isn't as easy as you'd think. Straight up, the game is designed to make you feel uncomfortable, with the cold open so you don't know where you are, and with a rule of 6 you see very quickly. That's the thing that put me off survival horror games. The limited inventory. I always felt like that would force you into a cowardly and uncomfortable playstyle, with a lot of backtracking, and I was mostly right. In a survival horror game, you are supposed to be uncomfortable. That's the point. And you're not forced into a cowardly playstyle, you just have to be smarter about the fights you pick and the ammo and guns you take with you. But your inventory will always fill up quickly, so it's a lot of going back and forth, taking items to a safe room, depositing them in the storage chest, and going back for the items you left behind. The combat adds another layer of uncomfort, with a character's aim turn rate. It's just slow enough to be a little uncomfortable, but not so slow that it feels bad and sluggish. And enemy health varies. Sometimes you'll need 4 shots to shoot down an enemy, sometimes 1, and anywhere in between. And that's with the same type of enemy. When you throw in the different enemy types, it's even more variance. So you can never quite solve the game, never have accurate expectations of how a combat encounter will play out. And this isn't even mentioning the sound design of combat encounters. It's quiet most of the time, like the type of quiet where the movie character would go, "It's quiet. Too quiet," and then get ambushed. But then you get a blood-curdling scream, and what I hesitate to call music hammers your eardrum that really activates your fight or flight. And you are constantly aware of your supplies. Do I have enough ammo to use in this combat encounter so that I will have enough ammo for a later, possibly worse combat encounter? You also have melee weapons, in the form of the stun prod and the thermite flare. In most cases, the stun prod will knock an enemy down and you will have to kick them to finish them off. Most of the time you have to kick them, or they will get back up again. But the thermite flare will one-shot them and permanently kill them. Yeah, that's right, if you don't use a thermite flare on enemies, whether it be the melee flare or the flare gun, they will have a chance to get back up. And that can turn areas that you thought were safe into a danger zone again. Especially if it's a tough enemy that got back up. There are 6 guns in the game, and my reasoning for using one was never, "Oh, this gun is really good for this situation, I should use it." Instead, the reason was, "I have a lot of ammo for this one, I should use it instead." If you have no ammo or melee weapons, then Elster at least has the push move, so you can use that to make space to run away. The last thing before I summarize is the first person sections. These are another way the game fucks with you and makes you uncomfortable. because you have gotten used to the top-down perspective, but now you're suddenly on the ground floor looking at the world. And it really makes you feel the oppressive atmosphere of the game to a higher degree. And you move very slowly in first person, and it's quiet, and I keep expecting something to be watching me or about to ambush me. These are either puzzle sections or a better presentation for a story beat. And by the way, these first person sections are probably why first and third person mods were possible, and they work really well with the game. And I really want to do a second playthrough in third person. I think it will be a more tense experience. Okay, summary. For the puzzles, I liked them and they were interesting. Almost all of them will be solved if you think a little bit about them, or they straight up give you the answer. But there were some where I had to Google the answer because I just wasn't figuring them out. Or they were presented to me in a weird way that I was looking at backwards. Combat, despite the emphasis on making me feel uncomfortable, felt good. Shooting felt good and accurate, with good sound design and impact, and stomping enemies when they were down was a very cathartic relief in every combat scenario. They do throw some difficult combat encounters at you where it feels like the smartest thing to do is running away, but I would be stubborn and bloodthirsty and try to kill the enemies. I had another reason for that, but that's a spoiler, so that's saved for the spoiler section. But after trying my hardest at the combat scenario, I would be heavily damaged and have wasted most of my ammo. And moving through the map in that state, low health, low or no ammo, is probably the most tension I have felt in a game ever, except maybe being one of the last 2 players in solo PUBG back in those days. This also happened during a part of the game where the map wasn't available, so I was 2 blood-curdling screams short of a panic attack. Or hitting pause, watching the Bionicle movie for comfort, and then coming back to it. Going into every combat scenario with the current state of my supplies at the front of my mind was a unique experience I've never had in a video game before. I would be lying if I said it was always fun, but it was really engaging and valuable. It made the experience more meaningful. Inventory management, or more accurately, inventory choices, is a big part of the game. Like, I need to have a flashlight for dark areas and I need a gun to defend myself. And I would prefer to have a healing item and a melee weapon. And I would prefer to have extra ammo for my gun, but then I only have 1 extra space for any items I find. So I'd have to cut back and take only the flashlight, gun, and a melee weapon or healing item. Maybe not even them, especially since back and forth return trips increase the likelihood of a dead enemy getting back up. Wow, this is a long summary. Okay, let's wrap it up. The gameplay is uncomfortable, intense, it rewards exploration, because then you get more supplies. It forces very tactical thinking in how you approach situations. And at the same time, it gives you catharsis and satisfaction when solving a puzzle, beating a combat scenario, or reaching a safe room. But even then, the safe rooms will give you an uncomfortable jolt. It's a dreadful, oppressive experience, but also an amazing one. Story. It's hard to talk about the story without giving spoilers, but I will try my best. The safest one to talk about is presentation. Of course, the map you wander around is part of the presentation. Environmental storytelling. It feels like you're playing through a dream, or personal hell. A lot of it feels very unnatural, out of place, or like it isn't real, which is a weird thing to say about a video game. And then we go into the cutscenes. Some of them are just conversations with NPCs and they still have that creepy aura to them. But then we have the weird cutscenes that feel like broken transmissions or a scratched DVD, aka Blu-ray, with quick flashes of images that you can't digest properly, with messages that you don't quite know the meaning of. Like the sentence in the beginning, "Things have learned to walk that ought to crawl." I would say that the most impactful art is art that is up to interpretation. And Signalis is very much up to interpretation, with those broken transmission cutscenes that don't give you much concrete, and with a level design. It's that dreamlike feel or personal hell, but I'll get deeper into that in the spoiler section. The story is also told through documents. You learn about the world through military documents, posters, letters, and various other reading material. And they are very well written. I rarely have the patience to read documents in a video game, but I read almost everything here. 1, because I have to for clues to puzzles, and 2, because they feel so immersive, like they were written by an actual character in the world. And 3, the presentation of the world I am in really made me want to figure out what was going on and learning everything I could about the world I was in. It's great. Before I go into spoilers, I'll just tell you how I feel about the story. It's the most engaged I have been in a video game story in a long time, and it's incredibly meaningful to me, and I would imagine it's meaningful to a lot of other people, since the main topic is something I think will unfortunately affect everyone at some point in their life. I think if you have the stomach for playing the game yourself, you are doing yourself a disservice in not playing it. And while the game is scary and tense, it's not that difficult. I don't think I died once in the game. But now for spoilers. Skip to the conclusion if you don't want to get spoiled. Spoilers. What is the signal? Well, that is up to interpretation. It's either a physical radio signal directed at L-Star units which asks them to follow and fulfill the promise, or a bioresonant, a psychic signal that Ariane is sending. Ariane is the white-haired girl from the premise signal cutscene. Ariane and an L-Star unit were in a romantic relationship, something that is not supposed to happen in this world. And the L-Star unit she was romantically involved with was recovered, and used to create other L-Star units. And so those units would respond to the signal, whichever way it presents itself, and it would change them, make them more like Ariane's L-Star unit. And they would want to follow that signal. And so the journey in the game is a journey that has been embarked by many L-Star units. Maybe. Again, interpretation. You could make the argument that the game is an infinite loop that you're trying to break by fulfilling the promise. And what is the promise? Ariane is a human, and was on a ship with L-Star, sent into pretty much a suicide mission to find hospitable planets. But during the trip, she didn't find any planets, and became sick, and progressively more sick. To the point that she made L-Star promise to end her suffering, instead of prolonging it. L-Star couldn't fulfill this promise, and instead put her in the ship's cryopod, where she is probably in some comatose state or some form of stasis. And so I believe the signal is most likely a psychic signal, but then we get into what the world you go through is. The theories I think make the most sense is either a dream, a personal hell, or some mental manifestation of L-Star struggling with a promise. I lean most towards personal hell, kinda like Silent Hill 2. Might be slightly different for different people that go into it, but it's still a place. Some supernatural place, because lore-wise, the places you go into shouldn't be close to each other, like the areas are on different planets. And then there is the King in Yellow. In this world, it is a banned book. It is very likely that this book was used in a ritual to create this personal hell. Whether it was Elster trying to save Ariane or some other character for some reason. I wanna narrow the focus to Elster and Ariane, so I won't talk about the other characters except when it affects the main two. But the world is in some cycle or loop as indicated in some documents, and what I view as the way to break the cycle is to fulfill the promise, or let go of the person you're holding on to. Let them go and end their suffering, and end your suffering. What gives the personal hell more weight in my opinion is the level design. Elster is a replica, mostly a machine, and fulfilling the promise would be easy for the machine, but for the human part, it's probably the most difficult thing you would ever have to do. And the more you progress in the game, the harder the enemies are, and the more fleshy the map becomes. And the enemies seem to have blood and flesh on them, and that could represent the human part of Elster trying to stop her from fulfilling the promise. What really adds weight to that is that one of the 4 endings you can get, the promise ending, where you actually fulfill the promise, requires you to kill a lot of enemies and basically play aggressive with little regard to self-preservation, killing the human part that can't fulfill the promise. I was trying to go for that ending. Having to end the suffering of someone you love is in itself a personal hell. The pictures you saw in the beginning were of my first dog. We had her since I was about 3 years old, but obviously as I became a teenager, she got old and she got cancer, which meant that her life became more painful, and for a long time we all just hoped things would get better for her, and that she could lead a happy life. But as time went on, she suffered more and more to the point that she was whining all the time and visibly uncomfortable. So the decision was made that she would move on to a happier place. I wasn't really on board with this decision because I wanted her in my life just a little longer. It was a selfish way of thinking because I wasn't thinking about how much she was suffering. And luckily the decision wasn't really up to me. And we gave her the best day she could have had. Long walks, lots of treats, and lots of pets. And then she moved on. This isn't the last time this would happen to a loved one. My grandmother suffered from Parkinson's and old age until she died. My grandfather and aunt got cancer, and that was just awful to witness. I never had to make the decision to end it. And for my grandma, aunt and grandfather, the decision to ease their suffering, to make their time left less painful, was made by doctors, not by us. I don't think any of us could have made the decision. I, at least, would not have made it. I would have had too much hope that they would get better and they could be in my life longer. And in the game, I got the memory ending, where Elster can't go through with a promise and instead lays next to Ariane and says she just wants to stay by her side a little longer. With the deaths I mentioned earlier, I have always been comforted by the fact that their suffering is over and that they're in a better place. And this game, with its story, really made me face that. Even though it's incredibly hard and feels like the wrong choice, it is the best out of a bad situation. The promise ends the suffering, and that's how I view the game. That the personal hell and cycle of suffering ends when the promise is fulfilled. The only caveat to this is one of the characters implies that no matter how that ending would go, whether it's the memory or promise ending, the cycle will end, because the world can't take much more. There are more endings and they can be interpreted in various ways, but this is my takeaway. This is what it means to me. It is an amazing story that had a massive impact on me. And the game can end up meaning something different for you. It's very up to interpretation. The game gives you a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and it's up to you to fill in the rest. Conclusion. Signalis is a masterpiece. The tension of the gameplay, the emotion the story brings out of you, and how it just can't seem to stay out of your head. The art, sound, level design is fantastic. It's just a fantastic journey that I won't be forgetting anytime soon. And it will stick with me for a long time. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's developed by 2 people, and most great games I'm finding now are developed by like 1 to 5 people. I really recommend the game, and even if you were spoiled, I think you will have a great time. Hell, I heard a lot of spoilers, and that still didn't manage to spoil the experience of actually playing it myself. It is a product of immense quality, and you should play it. And even when managing to do gameplay and story so right, it also manages to deliver the most profound meaning and message any game, movie, or music has ever delivered. Don't send lesbians into space. Subscribe, call me Uncle Brian, and have an amazing day.